what is actionable today, everything starts with the budget. You have to get to the stem of their spending habits and figure out what is the trigger for them. So much of personal finance is just the will to do it.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to everyone watching and listening today?
Show up for yourself. Life is going to throw a lot of hurdles in your way, but you just have to get back up and like go back to the core of what you're trying to do.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. Her name is Veronica Deraleau. She's a financial coach, author, opera singer, financial technology manager, and US Army veteran. During the COVID pandemic, when performing artists abruptly found their livelihoods on hold, Veronica felt called to share her personal finance knowledge. In Making Money is Simple, Veronica details the actions and mindset it took to pay off over $100,000 of debt in 3 years on a median salary. In her signature Money Simple coaching program, Veronica helps professionals and creatives stop going paycheck to paycheck so they can provide an abundant life for their families and start living out of their dreams. Welcome, Veronica. Thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you for having me, Ethan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome show for everyone watching and listening today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So yeah, for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourselves by telling us more about you and your journey.
Yes, so you started off really well. I would say leading up to COVID, the 3 years prior, I had graduated with my MBA in 2017, and I found myself in six figures of debt. And I was pivoting careers, so I knew I was kind of starting on the bottom, at the bottom rung, like in commercial real estate. So I wouldn't have like an outsized salary, I had a starter salary. And but I was a performer and I was wanted to move forward with my partner and get married and buy a home and move on with my life. And so I really wanted to get out of this debt as quickly as possible. And the whole, like in America, 10-year plus 10, 20-year payoff plan for student loans, I just wasn't, I did not want that in the cards for me. So I quickly was like, how do I get rid of this debt as quickly as possible? And started researching researching personal finance concepts. And then the biggest unlock for me was when I started working for the commercial real estate company, managing multi-million dollar property budgets and seeing how they projected out financial outcomes and then reverse engineered them so that you had the plan to make it happen. I was like, oh my gosh, these high net worth individuals, they budget strategically. They don't budget like one period at a time and hope that an outcome is going to happen. They already know the game plan for how they're going to increase income, how they're going to manage expenses to make these outsized returns happen. So that was the biggest unlock for me and how I was able to apply it to my personal finances. And that was, like I said, on a starting salary. And so 2020 hits, all of my artist friends lose their contracts overnight. I felt like I had this superpower and felt like called to share this personal finance journey and this incredible thing that I did, and just help other people because, I graduated with an MBA, but that's not where I learned this strategic budgeting from. It was from my own journey digging myself out of debt.
Yeah, I love it. It's very conceptual implementation, right? It's like you saw something somewhere else, and I love the working backwards, like we always do. You put up a plan. It's like simple stuff, but you saw the pattern there, and then you made it apply it to something else. So I think that's very important, right? And simple, right? Which is just like your book, right? Making money is simple. So tell us more because I think it's a great story, and I'd love to know. We can delve deeper into it as well. But let's talk about the book because obviously you've written it. Why did it come out, and sort of what can we envision? When we delve into the book.
Yeah, so I wanted to, funny that you mentioned reverse engineer. I wanted to get on paper like how I did it and the mindset that it took to get out of it because, you know, so much of personal finance is just the will to do it and to do whatever it takes to make it happen. Like the math is simple, but whether we can get out of our own way and disregard societal defaults and not take any expenses for granted. The first in the beginning of the book, the one of the first chapters, I talk about my childhood and my mother being an immigrant from a third world country, and I have this funny story in there where I'm 13 years old. I go to my first sleepover and I see how other people live. And this is all in America. But I didn't realize that my mother had retained some of her third world habits. And so it was the first time I saw like running water from a shower head. And I didn't realize that like we had that in our home. We just didn't use it because my mother was like, why would we waste water? So it was the first, I say in the book, like that was my first paradigm shift where I realized what lifestyle creep is because I didn't go back to that. I did not go back to basin baths after seeing running water. It's like, oh, what? Like, I'm not gonna like lower my living standard now, but it's something that we take for granted, these things that I'm not saying that we don't need to use running water, but every stone in personal finance expenses can be turned over to see uh, where you can where you can maximize, the differential between the gross income and the like the profit that you make. So yeah, so like every stone can be unturned, and that's kind of what I did as an asset manager. You're looking through every single invoice to uncover where you can save and hit your targets. So that's kind of the attitude. It's just like you have to do everything that you can to be successful. And so my book, to return back to your original question, I bring a little bit of my opera in there, and I have what's called my aria money model. An aria is an opera song, and it's just a cute like four-step framework, and it's a money mindset framework. So A is for awaken. That's when you have this like pit in the stomach, gut feeling that you're like something is wrong, something needs to change, and you have that willingness to make things happen. Then R is for reframe. So reconsidering all of the defaults. Then after that, you might be stuck on those first two for a while. After that, setting the intention for what you want your future to look like, and then finally taking action. And I do find like when I'm coaching people that one, you become so blocked by just, constant bombardment of marketing, advertising in the first world, you become blind to the things that you take for granted that can be changed, the levers that can be pulled. And so sometimes like my job is to be creative and be like, what about this? What about that? Just give them different ideas for what they can do. And usually they're coming to me at that awakened stage. Like they're like, something's wrong, something's got to give, something's got to change. Like I'm ready. And then helping them reframe their old habits and put like, okay, if you're not going to do that, what will be your default habit then? And let's find an alternative that's positive so that you can put a positive spin on it. And it's not just like, I'm in scarcity mode. Like, how do we get in abundance mode? And often I think that people can't turn it around because they don't know, like, if I have to sacrifice for a long time, I need to see the vision for the future. So I help with that vision. Like, here's mathematically what we can do. Here's if I was to go scorched earth, here's what I would do to make it happen as soon as possible. I actually think you could do this in less than a year. So like giving them that picture, but just doing the reverse engineering for them and giving them different ideas. And then they're like, oh my God, like, wow, I didn't know that I could actually do it that fast. So that's part of the work that I do. But the book is really the mindset piece.
Yeah, I love that. And I think mindset's so important. I think mindset's everything, right? Like I do business coaching, mentoring, I've got an MBA as well, and I've got an NLP master background too. So I have to make sure that I'm good at reframing the mindsets because you can teach the same thing to 10 people, you get 10 different results, right? Because all of their mindset is different. Like you said, I love those points about, growing up, what the norms are in the family. And I think like I know with my parents, they were just not as aware as what we are today. They just did what their previous generation did, right? They were just like, we'll just keep doing it instead of questioning, going, is there a better way out there? And because we've got access to more information and ideally we want to grow and change, I think that's where it is. And you get to that like awaken stage. So really the first three of those are all mindset, right? Like the awaken, the reframe, the intention is all mindset. And then it's just the action at the end, but you can't do the action unless you do the other three. So yeah, I love that simple four-step process. Really powerful there. And doing whatever it takes, that will and everything, I think is so important. I'd love to know some things because do you want to talk maybe around like the mindset stuff? Because like for example, my dad growing up, he told me hundreds of times money is the root of all evil, right? So like very bad into me. And I had to realize this when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and I reframed it and I changed it around the start of my first business and I started making money from there. So do you want to talk about these important points about like the money stories and what we should be believing maybe about money as well?
Well, what you bring up reminds me of something that I talk with through with my clients. We talk about money triggers a lot. And everybody's different. Like you said, you can have 10 different clients and get 10 different outcomes because they're all coming in with whatever their own baggage is. And so the concept of money triggers is like, okay, you have these behaviors. Like, what is this stemming from? Is this, for example, if I pay for a very expensive car, like, okay, why did you go for that car? And then you'll find out, oh, the wife doesn't care about the car. So, okay, why did the husband care about the car? Are you a car guy? Like, oh, no, I'm not really a car guy. It's just like, I want my family to be safe. I'm like, oh, okay. So your trigger it's not that you wanted the most luxurious car, you're just safety minded. So, sometimes you have to get to the root of it and say, is there a different car that's like half the cost of that very expensive car that could also provide safety? And just get to the bottom of like their feelings about money, like you said, the psychology of it and like the messaging that gets implanted in your brain through your parents for 20 years. So you have to get to the stem of their spending habits and figure out what is the trigger for them. Like, oh, is it a security thing? I've had such a variety of clients with different habits. So sometimes they'll one client I had like would like she would save money, but she would save money under a couch cushion and she would save money in a safe and she would save money in a box. And I was like, this is such a weird behavior. Like, I can't get a full picture of how much money you have because you have like money tucked away. And turned out, her husband had to I sometimes work with military folks because I'm a military spouse as well. And her husband had to be away for a long time, and it scared her like, oh my gosh, I have to be in charge of the family finances. And so she would squirrel away money. So sometimes I had to be like, well, that gives us an unclear picture. And here's like a better behavior for that you could try to do. And I want you to realize every time you do this that, then it becomes this hidden away money that we can't keep track of. And really, there's no need to be afraid like anymore. This was 20 years ago that this habit started. And yeah, so it's really like money triggers, getting to the bottom of these money triggers and figuring out I think in the social media space, there's a lot of talk about people spending on luxury and lattes and avocado toast, just as a joke, but a lot of family finances I find are much deeper triggers. It's like I can't say no to my children, or I have to pay for the best for them. How do you reframe that one? Like, I don't want to tell you that you can't, you should spend less on your children, but are you setting them up for success if you never teach them trade-offs, So like you kind of have to sometimes have to think kind of hard and be like, how do we reframe this one? Because they are difficult problems to deal with. And sometimes you have to tell people it's temporary. Like, I'm asking you to do this for a short period of time, and here's the end vision. If you buckle down for this period of time, you'll be out of the woods and can move forward. So yeah, that's what I would say about growing up with these messages that are like implanted in us and having to do some reverse psychology and get to the bottom of our own psychology and become very aware of our personal psychology and what might be getting in our way. And I had this I think I still deal with this a little bit with like fear. Like, yeah, I tend to be very conservative and with my money and just like I is there that the Charlie Munger quote or Warren Buffett quote, like you wouldn't risk it, you don't want to once you have money, like you don't want to risk that. I forget the quote about it, but it's like, protect the downside basically. Like, why, if you're all set, like there's no need to do risky behavior. So I feel like I've gotten to a good place, like even if there's more upside to be had, if it's like a risky business endeavor, to me it's like not worth it if there's a lot of downside risk, because I'm just more security minded, I guess. And then like the same with my husband, I had to kind of help him get, and as a family, like unprogram him, and to be able to spend more money on himself. Like once we were, a good 10, 20 years where we grinded for a long time to get ourselves in a good financial position. At some point, I was like, "Hey, babe, like we're secure. I think you can start to spend more on the things that you want to do in life and like knock off some of those bucket list items." So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So powerful, and that awareness. And I've recently got a just over 1 year old child, right? Of this, and because I'm aware of this stuff, right, of what I had to overcome from what my parents told me, I'm giving him the positive affirmations and incantations now, like money is easy to make, and all these things that I'm telling him on most days, because I'm hoping that there will be less stuff that he'll have to deal with when he gets older, and everything is.
That's
Uh,
funny.
yeah, it's interesting, right? When we have the awareness of that. One thing I loved what you talked about there when it was about like the new behaviors, and I think the behaviors and like the habits about finances, I think are really important, and this I think comes to the intention and the action part, right, at the end. So how once let's say we've awakened, we reframe, we fixed our mindset on whatever is important to us, what should we be focusing on? What are some simple things that we can be doing? Like you mentioned planning, other things like that, to make sure that we're on track and we're hitting our goals or whatever that looks like from a habits perspective. Yeah.
The first thing that I always do with my clients is form a strategic budget. So I have like a simple model, and basically that's another acronym. We start with a SMART goal, because I like to start with the end in mind. And then we take an inventory of income and expenses. The M and the P are minus and plus. So we increase our income where we can, we cut expenses where we can. And I do like an asset management type style review of it where I go line by line. So that's the L. And then execute is the E. So yeah, it's just like getting a clear picture of what's going on, getting a list of all the accounts, going through the bank statements. But the very first piece, I think that actually the very first piece and having the end in mind kind of go together. So with the SMART goal, I always think about that T, like we need time-bound goals because sometimes people, they don't start with the end in mind, so they don't know what they're sacrificing for. And then let's say they do have a goal. Let's say they want to save for a home. And okay, I'm saving $500 a month. You can do the math on that. Like take the amount, like, okay, what is the target home range that you want to look in? What is the down payment for that? And divide it by that 500. Like how long is that going to take if you're only saving $500 a month? Is that the time frame that you want to be, that you wanted? Because then otherwise we're going to need to change the default there. We're going to need to either increase what you save, or we're going to have to come to the realization that it's going to the time boundness, it's going to take a long time. So sometimes just examining like does first just examining all the accounts, like just getting an inventory of it. And then like what are we trying to achieve so that we can do the reverse engineering on the time and maybe be more realistic about where we are. So yeah, I always start with the strategic budget. And the reason I like to start with the strategic budget, one, I'm very good at it. And two, I think everything flows from that. Like you can't save, you can't invest, like there's no starting capital unless you start, you have an idea and you want to become a venture capitalist and pitch your business. But as far as like what is actionable today, everything starts with the budget.
Yeah, I love that. Just like a business, right? So important to have a strategic budget, just like in your personal finances, right? And your wealth, and as you're building that up. So start with the end in mind. And I like the time-based element because, yeah, otherwise, how long are we sacrificing for, right? It's like we're doing it for a period of time, so you can see the end goal. And then the discipline comes in right after that as well to make sure that you actually do that as part of it. So yeah, I love that. I think it's really important, really great stuff. And let's talk a bit more around coaching now, right? So I know that obviously you've been doing your coaching business now, and I think there's a lot of people there that want to do coaching. Obviously, we've all got different skills, whether it's financial, like yourself, business, mindset, all these things, right? Where we can help people. So I guess, because I think a lot of people want to do it, and maybe they want to make more money and do it on the side or do it as an additional business or whatever it is like that. Um, you know, how's it been going for you? What's been working? What's been challenging? Always interesting to hear.
Yeah, so I will say one of the things that I love about my coaching business is that, and we just talked about it, is that part of my business is the implementation piece. Because I'm like, I want to get amazing outcomes for my clients, which means that, usually, okay, people they need to go through the mindset hurdles and then I can give them the action steps or my recommendations, but where's the follow through? And I think that that is like the critical piece. And I think about like my day job, I work for a financial technology company, and I started with that company in onboarding. And I thought to myself, people pay for implementation. They want so they want the accountability when it's coaching. They want the implementation. Sometimes I just had two clients where we got them up investing, and there were technological challenges that we had to, and that is something that it's so funny that that can be a blocker, but it's so relatable. Like that is a blocker for me. Like I think it's so relatable to everybody that you have these hurdles and you can become deflated and you can give up. But saying, no, guys, like this is so important. We just have to brute force this thing because you have to start investing. Like we have to if we can't do this, let's try this platform. Like okay, it didn't work, let's try another platform. But having that accountability piece and having the implementation, and like sometimes it's just getting systems up and running so that the actual investing is frictionless. So that's one thing that in the personal finance space, you talked about what's different and what's been challenging. When I wanted to write my book, I was like, okay, this is a pretty, it can be easy to get lost in this space. Like, what is going to be unique about me? And one thing that I thought was missing was that implementation piece. So it's you can have all the knowledge in the world, but then if you don't actually take action on it, then it's pretty worthless. So if someone just is like, I just don't know where to start, but I know I want to do it, then they can come to me and I can help them through that. And then as far as like behind the scenes, what's been difficult is, I came from, I'm a manager at now I'm a senior program manager at a financial technology company, like I said, and my whole career has been B2B in commercial businesses. And I'm used to the end buyer being very logical and being very financial minded when they're making decisions. And so it's either like, yes, it makes sense because it's going to make me more money or it's going to save me money or whatever, but it's pretty black and white. But that is not how B2C sales goes. It's all psychology and you're helping people that are maybe at the point where they're kind of afraid, and they're feeling hopeless, they're feeling resigned, and it can be hard to say, no, 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 like you can turn this around, and sometimes they can't see it, and how do you convince someone that's like stuck in that place? So having that's been like the big piece for me that has been like a really big change is just that sales psychology and digging into that, and then also just like pricing and packaging, like how do you get people to see value, and like just putting all of that together from going from B2B to B2C.
Yeah, I love it. So interesting. And yeah, I completely agree. Like the coaching game, I think we're lucky in a way when you talk about money, finances, and business, it's more tangible, right? So you can go, hey, you invest in me, then based on experiences or whatever, we're gonna aim for this amount to save you money or make you money, right? In that way. So that will, or we're gonna hit this goal, right? Which is gonna be a goal that's tangible. So I think that helps, right? And what you're doing. I love what you said about the implementation, because I do this as well with my clients on the call sometimes, right? So I like, I can get my hands dirty, probably like you. It's like, hey, you didn't action this from last session, let's do it now. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, like, and sometimes people just need that push, and it's hard to
Yeah.
do that on your own, right? That's the power of coaches like yourself. How we work is like we give you that push, and sometimes there's a barrier, right? It's like they have, maybe it's a money ceiling, right? Or whatever it is, a business ceiling. And it's like, hey, oh, we've done this before, but we've gone backwards. It's like, well, now we're going to break through, right? That area and go through. And they're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. There's this whole other world here that I've never been to before. And you need someone like, yourself, to get them through that, right? And then all of a sudden, a lot of opportunity comes from that. So yeah, I think it's amazing, with what you're doing there. And I think, you know, what's interesting, because you've got the great MBA side of things, like myself, that strategic side, which is great, the numbers side, so important. But I think the big part is the mindset part, and obviously you being like a US Army veteran, doing the performing there, and that mindset side. Do you want to maybe just talk about that a little bit more? Because I think there's some gold in here where what you learned from going through that process, early on, and how that sort of shows up and can help people today.
Yeah. So I would say, even before that, like being a musician, the reality of how long it takes to be proficient at something is, people give up way before before that. And put that together with business, put that together with the military, and there's so many highs and so many lows, and you have to realize that that's part of it, and that you have to play the long game with finances. So with the army, like I like working with military families. One thing that I love about them is they've done hard things. So I'm not asking them to do anything that I haven't personally done. and they're already used to doing very hard things. So, I can ask them to, hey, like, come open-minded, and we're gonna just try some things, and they'll like be willing to do it to get that end game. But yeah, you have to be willing to just try things. That's another thing with in my book that I talk about with singing is, gosh, it's like so weird to go into a room and you don't know anybody, and then you're doing an audition and you're like singing your guts out, and you're like, this is me. It's so vulnerable and exposing, and it's very difficult, and you get in your mind. And same thing with the military. You have to do hard things, and it's all in the mind. Like, I remember one like very taxing ruck march that we did during boot camp, and I just remember, thinking to myself, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to go, and if my legs give out, that's okay. But for damn sure, I'm not going to be the one to stop walking and give up. Like, that's not happening, and I'm not going to let anybody see that happen. Like, I will have to pass out before that happens. So yeah, sometimes, and even like I was an athlete in school. I was a swimmer for growing up, and you have a lot of it is in your head, and being able to, there's like a mind body connection in both singing and being an athlete, where if you tell yourself something, if you visualize something positive happening, you can, often make that happen because you've planned out how you're going to make it happen. You're like, okay, when I get on stage, or when I, jump in the water or whatever, my heart rate's going to go up. So how am I going to breathe? And you like envision that happening, or like, where am I going to gaze with my eyes? Or like, how am I going to slow my breath? And if it does happen, how am I going to just continue? If I do make a mistake, just keep going. Like, you plan all these contingencies, you plan for things to go wrong. And, there's so many parallels in life, and how people get stuck in finances. I see so many times is they give up when there's blockers, and they don't have contingency plans when life goes sideways, and they just, they let their mind fail them, and they don't have the B and C and D plans ready to go. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels with athleticism and music, and just anything that takes a long time and takes a lot of emotional stamina and has a lot of inherent ups and downs.
Yeah, I love that. So true. Like I actually did the choir for a little bit growing up, but I been in sports, soccer, tennis a lot, and I agree. It's like that never quit attitude, right? It's like, I'm just going to keep going no matter what. There's going to be ups and downs. I think is so important, right, in there. And I think it's the grit, right? It's the resilience. And I think that's what is good for hiring people as well in a business, because it's like, have they had to dedicate themselves to something for a period of time where they're having to master, where they've been average or crap for it for a little while, and they have to right, to improve, because
Yes.
when you go to the gym the first time, you're not strong, you're sore, and anything, you're bad the first time you do something. So I think that's really important for hiring, and anyone for mindset, or to be hired, right, be a leader, whatever that is for you, to work on your finances, in that way there, because there's always going to be ups and downs. You're going to lose money from time to time, right? Or you're going to make money as well. So as long as you, and I love, we're very similar, right? Because I always think about all the things that could happen, like many moves ahead. I used to play chess
Mm.
growing up as well. And that's exactly what you said. Plan for the success and the contingencies. I think
Mhm.
that is one of the most important points there, because it's like vision. This is what's going to happen. I tell myself before meetings, before podcasts, like, this is what's going to happen, right? Same in a business sense, you do it in life, finances, whatever, but also going, if this happens, this could happen. If this happens, this could happen. So how am I prepared for that situation, depending on what happens? And obviously optimistic for it. So there was so much gold that you just shared. I just wanted to reiterate that to everybody, right? On that area. That's applicable to life, to business, to a lot of things. And if you have those traits, I think it's there. I think the youth of today, unfortunately, are not as strong-willed. They sort of want everything now. That what I'm seeing compared to the old school way of doing ways that of us growing up. So we've got to try and instill this into our kids. I think of wanting this, and they can really, really stand out in the new world. But yeah, you shared so much gold with us here today. And a couple of last things before we wrap up. So opera singer performing, like I think performing, I got to speak at the Sydney Opera House actually, like here, for the first ever business event. So that was awesome. I wasn't singing opera.
Lovely.
I was speaking business, but I think speaking on stage, just like performing in the opera, right? There's an
Mhm.
element of you need that confidence, that competence to go up and do it. So for those people that want to perform in one of those elements like that, what type of tip could you give people so that they go out there and really, make an impact?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I just thought of is you have to practice well. You have to practice perfectly or as perfect as you can. So don't I was going to say, okay, practice, but everyone knows that. But I had a teacher. I didn't think I was a very good vocal student actually when I was in school. It wasn't until after I got into the real world and started gigging that I developed my technique. Because I had in grad school, I had a teacher who said, Veronica, I think you practice too much and inefficiently. And this is a thing with like physical performing arts, anything physical. You have to actually practice the way you're going to do it and don't practice it sloppy because it's muscle memory. So the energy level, before I go on stage, I'm like doing jumping jacks or something. So the energy level that has to be there, mimicking like how your heart rate is going to go up so that you can practice your breathing, even like your hand gestures or like where you're going to look, practicing in front of an audience, like, it could be friends, but actually just trying to mimic the environment. But yeah, perfect practice is what's important.
Yeah, I love that. So, so true. Getting yourself in those situations and make it happen. One interesting little reframe potentially, right? Because perfection is obviously almost impossible, right? And there was the old saying of practice makes perfect, but a good
Mhm.
reframe that I've heard is practice makes permanent there.
Mm.
So you can use that one if you like, right? So when you practice it enough, it becomes like muscle memory, it becomes permanent, right? In you. So you go out there and you just deliver every time, right? And obviously keep improving as you want to improve in there. So I love those points. So true. A lot of people just rock up and don't necessarily practice, but that's what it's all in. Just like in a sport, you've got to practice, right? To get yourself into ready for game day. I always used to say when I train that I train the way I play, right? I'm going all
Yep.
in.
That's the essence of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so much gold you've shared with us today. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to everyone watching and listening today?
Show up for yourself. I think that's where it starts is like, I love going back to that resiliency piece. I feel like that is like the number one thing. Like life is going to throw a lot of hurdles in your way, but you just have to get back up and like go back to the core of what you're trying to do and always be positive and have hope for the future and get back up and show up for yourself.
Yeah, I love it. So, so true. And yeah, we connected through our networks, learned about your awesome journey from being a musician in the US Army Reserve, excuse me, to working for an early stage companies, across various industries, to now being a financial coach and author. You're an amazing woman, so knowledgeable. You shared so much gold. There's so many actionable things, processes, the way we need to think today about money and really about success, right? In any field, I think. I think it was so, so amazing. And I'm sure you continue to help people live an abundant life for their families and start living out their dreams. I'm very grateful that we connected. Look forward to partnering as well. So, Veronica, how can people, find you and get in contact with you?
So you can find me at www.makingmoneyissimple.com. I'm on Instagram and different social media platforms at Making Money is Simple.
Beautiful. We'll definitely check it out. Check out the website, the all the socials. We'll have them in the show notes there. Get the book. I'm sure all these different processes and frameworks and things will be in there. Will be amazing as well. Yeah, it's been a pleasure interviewing you, and thanks for being on the Business Grow Show.
Thank you, Athin.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.